All right, here we go again. Hopefully the audio quality is better. I'm trying to find my one belt where I wear this other system. I have the system, I just can't find my equipment belt. It's got a Velcro. I put a homemade Velcro panel on it, and I just go. And then I broadcast with the XLR headset mic. I don't know where it went. There it is. Well, I'm online now. Hopefully it's good enough. So a couple of things. I don't know. It doesn't look like that guy was in military, but you never know. What triggers PTSD and all that, especially if he's been psyoped. If he's ever been psyoped, then and maybe he was in the middle of a psyop. There are spies out there that are hired to take out ICE people. But if you were to ever confront them, they say it was a private investigation. And they have connections and they have money, and they'll bribe whoever they need to bribe, they'll extort whoever they need to extort. So like Mossad or former CIA or what's that guy's name in Texas and Houston? Carnaby, like a Carnaby. Right. So you'll never win that thing where you can do it. Yeah, they responded. Pulled my microphone off. So there's people like that are out there, and they're being hired to kill ICE. I'm sure, but you may not know how it works. You may not even see them. Like that guy may not even saw them. He had the same thoughts. Here, just to let you know. Remember, I said I saw certain thoughts, like there's no reason to live anymore. Right. The shooter had the same thoughts as that Border Patrol officer. I guess he wasn't ICE. I said he was ICE. The Border Patrol officer that just recently committed suicide. It's the same thoughts. I'm sure. If he did commit suicide, there's no official thing yet. Well, he would be the big target. They already know that they were able to take him down. Well, they get millions to do that. It's a scam. They killed marshals the whole time. The whole time they were doing it to me, they were trying to kill marshals, and eventually they killed a few. I mean, they spent decades in their life. Right. Techies are part of it. So anybody that works for a techie is suspect as far as former law enforcement or law enforcement. No, he was definitely killed with curses at a minimum. Right. And the thing is, you have to stay connected to him. He could have retired. I don't know how long. I was trying to find out how long he was on the Border Patrol. He does look kind of freaked out. He may have already been psyoped. You know what I mean? He was in the middle of a psyop when all that happened. And that could have actually caused it. Right. But they'll come in and like, oh, we're investigating that son of a gun. He's a this, he's a that. That's how they do. They just keep heaping shit on the person until, right. Like I try to explain to you that their favorite thing is like a teacher or a soccer coach. They'll continually call them a pedophile just because of the nature of the position they have. And there's a lot of curses in that direction. And eventually, a lot of them succumb to the will. Again, they're playing with my head, trying to get me to do something. And they're not investigating me. They're trying to kill me. Oh, well, of course we're trying to kill you. I never said anything. I never did anything. Although they realized I was investigating things outside of where, again, you're allowed to investigate things, but it's outside of like them, which means, and again, they'll say to Trump, well, like Trump, he'd investigate you when we tell him not to investigate. But it's bullshit because they'll get Trump investigated because they want to manipulate Trump. Right? They're always lying. They're just consummate liars, pretty much. And the world isn't getting safer per se, even though you see some stats say it's a little safer, because it cycles. Once we get it safer, like right now, they're probably killing people just to make it unsafer. Right? Like people in ICE and Border Patrol. Well, it takes time. It takes time to, get somebody. Somebody may have actually told them, get that guy and we'll pay you for it. Right? There may be a cartel that paid a bunch of PIs to do that. You'll never trace it to the PI unless CIA does it, and CIA won't do it. Right? So that's that. So, but you can fight it by the things I'm telling you. You have to tell people that they need supplements to help them relax. Everybody does. Believe me, it's better. You're going to drink your coffee anyway, right? If you don't drink coffee, that stuff might slow you down a little bit. You may not want it, but the ashwagandha also fights cortisol, and you're cranking up cortisol right now, right? Adrenaline, the running, right? So ashwagandha will dial back your cortisol and some other things. And then the theanine, it's just natural, and you just fall asleep. You'll probably sleep. Theanine, it's easier than what's the other stuff? Melatonin. It was getting weird. I never had problems with it. So again, I don't know if I'm getting weird or not. Not Walter. Get out of here. Whoa, they're all here. I don't know if I'm getting like a bad batch of melatonin or something. And there is a possibility that the deep state may have altered it if they know that it helps somebody. Right? It's harder to stroke somebody out and harder to give somebody a heart attack when they're on melatonin. I can see the difference, which means when you get excited over something, you get less excited. So your blood pressure definitely stays down 10 to 20 points lower than it could reach if you got excited. But I never took large doses of melatonin, nothing over 3 milligrams, sometimes only 1.5, which is 3 milligrams is generally the smallest dosage. But there was young people taking like 10 milligrams. It's way too much for a young person. Right. Well, the problem is there's a lot of allergies and a lot of untreated allergies. And that has a whole slew of things that happen around it. Well, what happens in government is when somebody goes on leave for that, nobody talks. I don't know if he did or not, but then, it's a whole different, because then they're stuck. The only thing that's in their head at that point is the deep state. Deep state and those immigrants that pay them. Remember, deep state's on both sides of the aisle. Right. That's why they isolate their victim. So they can, but I just keep bashing back at them. I'm sure there's a few of them that suicided out. Not that was my intention, but Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. So again, the other thing is, I know I said you should be in the news and in the public, explaining what you're doing and all that, but you're much more intense than I imagined. But there's a pitfall to some of this, and it's just you got to be careful, because what keeps coming up is the Abrego Garcia case. It should have been out of the news. We never should have tackled that. You don't have to tackle like he's not like El Chapo or anything. You know what I mean? You're spending more time on him than you did El Chapo. All right. So the problem with that case that keeps coming up, and I don't know, and it may not be this, but remember this part. We already know that there was a fraud scam defrauding the government. They were reported a victim of a crime, and then they would get their citizenship for being a victim of a crime. So we know that plays differently in everybody's mind. So you come along, you talk to her. She knows that if she plays her cards right, she could have a green card, or citizenship, or a green card, I guess what it is. Right. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm not against it as long as it's legitimate. So the young lady, I don't know what your evidence is. That's the point. If your evidence is that you have electronic communication and you see it, that's fine. But and I don't think this thing's going to go to the courtroom. I believe we'll dispose of it, and we should dispose of it before it goes to the courtroom. I mean, we don't want to hear Abrego Garcia in 6 months. We just don't want to hear it. It just needs to disappear. Now, of course, he's going to be some sort of activist now, like Greta Thunberg. He'll be the Greta Thunberg of of the immigrants, right? But I just don't get what they're doing is they're drawing you into that and drawing you into other stuff. And again, I know I get drawn into stuff, but again, I investigate a certain way, and sometimes I have to get drawn into it to investigate it. right? And also, I'm not the Secretary of Defense. I mean, I don't even have a pot to piss in, actually, or a pistopot in. Yeah, so bad I don't even have a pistopot in. So in that particular case, if it does go to trial and they discredit her, you've made a lot of statements about her, the Attorney General, the Secretary of DHS. That's exposure that you don't need. That's kind of going too far. There's ways to mitigate it, and you'll hear me do that. We believe that this evidence is true, right? So you say, well, we can only go with what we know, right? But again, even if you said that, it could be dangerous if they prove it untrue. Also, most likely this evidence is true from what we can tell. Because you're actually he could sue you if they could absolutely disprove it. I mean, they can't absolutely, but if you can't prove it, a jury might. You've seen how the juries are falling, right? Right, and that would be probably a Maryland case. Juries, could fall his way. Remember, Judge Cannon is out there protecting him. Yeah, get that pumpkin head out of there. No, really, it does look bad. I'd get rid of it. I didn't notice it last time as much, but I did notice it. I don't know if he changed the photo. I don't think he did. Right. Yeah, they're whammying it because you're putting it everywhere. So now it's a negative. I don't know. I mean, you probably don't want to do it because I said it, but you could have put a new photo and said, this is a new photo to celebrate the golden age. Right. And it's just weird. And I don't think it's better if you took your secretaries or whatever and then put their pumpkin head up there. But again, that's this things are starting to turn against you, and you don't know what's being set up. Well, I hardly believe that they have professional operators that you don't see, right? Especially online. They're tracking all of you, making secret dossiers and stuff. I don't know if you got this part. I can't connect to the trans community like I used to. That's an issue. I can't, because I used to be able to get in there and converse. I could look at somebody in a photo and converse and get what the skinny is in whatever it was. Well, it maybe something saying maybe that's the difference. Like I'm a big person, so if I go into their community and I try to help them psychologically, I might be all they have at times. Well, because activists won't necessarily, let's say it's a trans activist, won't necessarily help them the same way, right? A more neutral way. Nah, I think that statement where he convinced himself, again, foreshadowing was when I speak about the guilty plea. Nobody commits a crime of themselves, metaphysically speaking. That's just the way it is. Especially a crime where they would be arrested. Nobody does it of their own self. So that gets the monkey. Metaphysically, once they say, oh, I did it myself, then what happens? The blame comes off of whatever cursed them to it. Right. That's why they try to convince me, oh, no, this is all you. I was doing a lot of stuff trying to cause issue. They do want me to go out and have sex. There's no doubt. And church is part of that because they're part of what was taking me down and making me susceptible to something like that. So that guy was susceptible to suicide and he couldn't beat it. Right. Because they took him down. And you weren't around him to take him up. Right. And plus, he gets credit for every operation that he's on, kind of an inside credit. Right. and he wasn't getting that credit. Well, somebody needed to talk to him, and it wasn't the end of the world. You go, we'll make sure. Like if you're another border patrol guy, say, look, whatever happened, I ain't going to get no 7 years. What he should have done, and now is they just need to go into counseling immediately, and then they could go ahead and try to get a retirement. Tell you the truth, if he went into counseling, it may have mitigated it for something like probation, or even less. Who knows? Right? Chris had PTSD, and that really is. I mean, the problem is he was so inebriated. But why was he inebriated? PTSD. He was medicating, self-medicating. I see his face, the expressions on his face a couple times. It's possible. I don't work with him, so I don't know how often he makes those expressions. Right. But he looks like it's freaking him out. Right. Well, one of the most difficult things is to maintain your composure during an investigation while the deep state's killing you, because you're already stressed out beyond where anybody would normally be. So they try to make you look guilty in an investigation. And again, investigators know there's that truth. Again, I've helped them with it over the years that, a lot of times these people only look that way because they're being stressed out to look that way. Like I was being sold out by everybody that was part of the thing in the workplace to try to make me look like I had something to do with Luna's thing. What they didn't know is that I guess they didn't know, that I had a perfect alibi because I was being watched. Right. Just being investigated by the U.S. attorney. and yeah, I don't know. Did what's her name investigate me at all? What's that woman there in D.C.? Papiro, whatever her name is. Because I was doing some stuff up in Westchester County, but I was innocent, innocuous, right? Oh, I did investigate some people up there for the Marshal Service, but I couldn't get anywhere. Right? Yeah, they were dirty. Right? They tried sexualizing me. Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir. And I think when I got out of the Marshal Service, I went up there because I was thinking of moving there. I really was, because I just had an okay time in New York. So I was like, what's it cost to move up to New York? I went to Westchester County for a little bit. I got drugged up there. There's no doubt. Right. But that's when the end began. That was the beginning of the end. I got drugged in New York pretty bad. And then they started following me around. Right. So they tried to bait me with the judge's wife and all sorts of crazy shit. I'm like, yeah, get out of here. So, well, I was actually looking for a Latina wife up there, is what I was doing. Right. Not Marshal Service, just a community up there. All of a sudden I connected. So that's what it ended up being. I was going to move. I was thinking of moving to Westchester County. And I probably had friends up there inside. Obviously, the judge's wife was my friend. I didn't know anything about that when I was there. I was asleep. And that's part of why they killed me, because they were like, they could just see me taking over the detail, just like the idiots in Maryland, Right. Well, they just don't know how to respect the protectee, the principal. Right. I mean, I just like, what kind of argument is that? Secret Service isn't going to say that. So if you want to be professional, just think about what the Secret Service would actually say in that situation. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. 100%, man. I found that they were ill-suited for protection details on most deputies. Right. I don't know what it is today, but definitely back then. Thank you. Well, I just don't know how to, take one for the Gipper or whatever it is. Just following your sword, not that important. The same thing. It's not that Abrego Garcia is not that important. Shut up, deputy. Right, there's important things and non-important things, and what I think you're being manipulated. And again, it's a whole thought process. It isn't necessarily each event. Your behavior is being changed by operators. So you're latching on to things that really aren't, not, as they say in the scripture, expedient. Abrego Garcia is not expedient. And now he's got somebody made a sex complaint, and we don't even know if it's. I mean, I don't even know if it's true. You may know if it's true. Bless you. Well, the Border Patrol was targeted before for suicides. And I think it's happening again. Because I'm the one that told him. I don't know if it ever made it to him. I told him on Facebook. The Bush administration started arresting them for like stupid shit, and put the guy got pardoned or something. But right, I was so surprised the Republicans were arresting him. Well, see, that's how you lost. That's how Trump took over. You started losing credibility because you're like arresting Border Patrol. Like, it's a Border Patrol. Well, there's mitigating circumstances. They're very difficult jobs. I mean, at the worst, you write a reprimand, right? And that goes away in a year or whatever it is. Agreed. So again, like that guy, you need to support your people, right? That guy had a lot of support. So the guy, he made a mistake, but he's probably was, he probably was self-medicating. That's what I believe. Right. He may have been drugged too. That's the thing about going out to bars when you're law enforcement, especially doing that ICE mission. Right. He may have been drugged. It's a large possibility. Man murders turned into a high relation before trying to stage death as car accident. All sorts of wacky stuff. Right. There's no reason to kill anybody. Again, there's not a lot of conversation in that direction. I'm a good person that makes that. There's no reason. It's always life to. Right. He probably, I don't know how much time he would have given him if he's, fell on the mercy of the court and claimed PTSD. He may even have got probation. Right. And if he can't serve as an officer, it's not the end of the day. It's actually the beginning of a new life a lot of times. You just have to know, realize what it is. I didn't know anything. I just did what God told me, and that was it. Again, I started waking up, and there were spirits and God there, and it wasn't, immediately available in the beginning. Right. And then that song from Switchfoot, I always use that to help bring me back up, welcome to the planet, because I was waking up. He may not have woke up. He may have not been able to understand what life actually is to a certain degree. I mean, it didn't do me a whole lot of good as far as having a normal life, but they weren't able to kill me because I woke up. I'm God's lawyer, and God's my lawyer. That's how we do it. Yeah, your courts on earth are bullshit. We just, you do it in the system. You kind of jam your fake system up a little bit so I can survive and get some work done. That system's fake. What did I just do with the wire cutters? Thank you, Larry. So again, you have to support him. So somebody has to be assigned to call him. This will be part of. You should come up with an SOP. Right? If somebody catches a charge, you have to have somebody from the office call him. Talk to them. Say, it's okay, not to be law enforcement if that's where it goes, but you might be able to stay. But again, if he'd have done the right thing, go into counseling and claim PTSD, there'd have been a lot in his mind to think about his future, right? Because he would at least had a retirement. Now they'd have gave him retirement, right? Anybody that's operating in LA right now could come down with that level of PTSD, even just like from operating in LA, because you don't even know how it works, do you? It's an insight. PTSD is an insight. Right. Yeah. This thing won't cut. Thank you, Larry. So your subconscious is experiencing trauma, psychological trauma. That depends how asleep you are, right? Because those operators are out there trying to kill you for money, and sometimes they just hate you because they're part of the cartel world. Whether they run for office or or they're being right, or they bribing. They're part of they're the in crowd. A lot of those type of people are the in crowd, even in Republican world. Believe me, some Republicans I'm not against them, but they explained the gay Republicans. It's kind of a one guy is out there, with it. He's a real gay operator. Right. Well, it's just to some people that's like being that as a sellout. Right. They still believe in conservative values or whatever. But again, it's just like with Vance. And I'm not saying Vance is gay, but he's had experience with trans people in his life. Right. He's not going to will a trans person to grab a gun and shoot people. He's not going to get that excited about it that he projects into it. Right. But there are people that will do that because it's a moneymaker. Like, you can't handle the truth. That's where they put their mind. You all can't handle the truth. That's how it's done. They do that with me. Like, I don't know how it's done, but yet once they take the presidency, I'm the one that has the most information that can actually, keep it going. They didn't get elected, maybe, but again, if you did my stuff, you wouldn't need it to get elected, right? Well, at a certain point, we're going to need work visas. It's obvious. So I'm not even sure why again, ICE may have information that they're not making public about some of these people, right? You see their connections, you see the people they hang out with, and they're, and just make sure it's not like if you see somebody with somebody, you see a connection, a phone call, and that person's like a narcotics distributor or something. Make sure they're not just doing a favor for somebody that they have no idea that they're a narcotics distributor. Because I think that's some of it. You see them tied to narcotics distributors and other things, right? Just make sure it isn't like, they're at a charity event and this person's going to donate money or something like that. So, because I gave rides to someone who was affiliated somehow with a heroin distribution thing, but they just were in a bad way. They were a user. He was a user, and he wasn't he was in it was what do they call it, a relapse. He relapsed. Right? So he finally found like his girlfriend and him came to Phoenix or Tempe. Actually, they were in Phoenix. The parents didn't like their relationship because she was like 24 and he was like 40. But I saw him handle her, and there's nobody there's not even a 40-year-old that would actually be able to do what he did. She has psychological issues, but she was a gorgeous young woman. Right? But when she freaks out and has her issues, he's there and he knows how to control it and he takes care of her. There's nobody else that's going to do that for her. Not even a young guy will be like, later. Right. So I, that number one, there's people that are like 70 years old that are college professors that are, dating their students and shit. So again, it's selective enforcement, right? Because the professor's like a deep state person, right? So they were in a car. This is what he told me, and I believe him. It seemed to be happy. So he went, and they got in an argument because of the parents. They got in an argument. He took off, and of course he relapsed and started using drugs. Right? I don't know if he used heroin, but he was using drugs. May have been. I don't know. Right? So he finds me at the hotel, and it's a weird situation. I forget how it all happened, but somehow he found somebody who let him stay in a room, but he was limited on how long he could stay in the room. Right? But he was in a car because the guy said he'd give him a ride. Oh, he hooked up with his girlfriend finally. They found each other. They hooked up, and yes, we're in love. We're going to go back to they lived in a mining town that had no bus service in, which didn't make any sense because it's a mining town. Why didn't it have any bus service in? Right. And, right. So he did he was working great at the mine. The woman they lived with, they rented from, she had a house, and she was alone, so she enjoyed the company, right? And he just said I've been doing great until I came back to this area. And a lot of people find that, and so I gave him a ride. It got convoluted. She tried walking out with a bottle of water, and and the cops hemmed her up in the security room. It was just a bottle of water from Electronics the Fry store or whatever. And so he's like, my girlfriend's got psychological, because he was I was going to meet him the next day and give him a ride, and that's all it was, or something like that. But he's like, my girlfriend's got psychological issues. I don't know where she is. She does this. And I was like, okay, I'll give you a ride. So we saw the cop cars. We were driving around, and I saw the cop cars at Fry's. I said, is there any reason that she may have been in Fry's? And he's like, yeah, possibly. So we went, and that's where she was. And they had her, and because we asked around, and we said she's got issues. And so the cops come out, and they're pretty pissed off, at everything. And they're like, you got to go. And this sounds like, okay. And we took off. So eventually we tried to reason with him just mildly. And then she shows up later. He's all broken up and over it. But a couple hours later, she shows up, or less. And she says, we said, well, what happened? He said, I told my uncle was a detective, and I know my rights. And, this is a little bit too long already. And they said, bye. That's what she said. Yeah, they hit over. She's got psychological issues, and they're beating her up for 3 hours or something in a security room. And then they tried to insinuate, saying he was a pimp or something. It was real. She had psychological issues, and he was a good guy for her. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, I can't judge anything else there. Because she whacked out. I'm like, eh. Hope she doesn't kill us. And then he started talking to her, and it was magical. She just turned to normal after a minute or so, because he talked her down. Like I said, a young guy either would smack her and get arrested, or just walk out and say, forget this. Right. So I took them back, but I think they used that against me to get me interdicted when I was driving on the highway in a van to go pick up my stuff from storage in Indiana. I got interdicted 3 times. And of course, they watch me 24/7, so they absolutely know that I have no link to narcotics distribution. Correct. Again, they abuse the system. They should be arrested for that. Right? It was abusing the interdiction system. when somebody, but that's my point. Did they know? Because see, I was already working on, with some DEA tips and stuff like that. It's just I spoke about it before. And again, if they weren't plying this disabled woman with narcotics, I wouldn't been that concerned, because people are using narcotics everywhere, Right. And then she ended up pregnant like freaking a year later or something. They get her high and they have sex, but she's disabled, she's not all there. Right. So again, they may have been trying to make me afraid to do any of that stuff. Like put me on the other side of the thing. Right. Oh, the detectives, no doubt the detectives were into, that shit. And they're on the take, no doubt. Actually, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I find that the police department sets the officers up so they almost have to be on the take to afford to live. It was so out of the norm of what it costs, the cost of living. But you had to drive like almost an hour to get to work if you wanted to afford to live somewhere on their pay. So that's one of the tricks, I believe, that some people use to put the deep state into their police department. Right. You just don't pay the officer enough. If they don't deep state, then they don't have anything. Right. So back to the other thing. Just be careful what you're saying, because there's a lot of stuff that could be untrue. Like Abrego Garcia may know he never did that. And then you're saying he did it, and he's like, because he's looking, like I told you, he's looking at a lawsuit, money. He's looking at money. That's what he wants, right? At this point, him and his lawyer. So if you're making statements and they're untrue, that's going to help his case. So what's going to happen is they'll probably subpoena her if they do it this way, and I think they will. They'll subpoena the evidence, and you might say, well, we can't produce it, but it's going to hurt the case. Right. So you just be careful what you're saying, because when you're revealing evidence in a case, sometimes that evidence is not tested. Right. And then when it gets tested, it fails, and then he says, look, I want money. Right. I believe that's going to be the end of it. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying, get him to agree not to sue and put him somewhere where he wants to go. Right? Just to put he's out of the United States. Like, that's why I said Canada. It doesn't even matter. As long as he gets out of the United States, then it doesn't matter. And if you fix it, then it's over. Right? You don't have to do that for anyone else. Right? Great. Like when it started, if you just would have did it like right away, brought him back, and then I don't even know what you would have done then. You could have probably still deported him. Back then it was so small, you probably actually still. The Justice Department lawyer should have said, let's just get a signature that he won't sue us, and we'll clean it up. Right. Now you could say, look, we know we can press charges. We have a case. We're not going to do that. Let's work on a deal where you go your way, we go our way. Right. Because back then it wouldn't have mattered. You know what I mean? He isn't like, Abrego Garcia! Viva! Viva Abrego Garcia! That's why you get rid of it. Especially when you're in office. See, part of what's going on is you all make a lot of noise, but people don't necessarily like noise. You're doing what some people voted you to do, but you can do it with a lot less noise. Now, I'm not talking about being spokespeople, but again, how you say it is important also. Well, the worst of the worst of the people take that and they accept it, but every day. Right. Yes, that's a point. You actually do have worse people than Abrego Garcia, and you put them out there every day. Right. No, I never solicit anybody for nudie photos. Although, like I told you, I tried to marry a couple cam girls. I actually could have married the one. She was a little young, but I mean, I'm alone. She's alone. And I asked her. I said, I was point blank. I said, "What about the younger guys? I'm kind of old, you know." And she's like, "Look at my daughter. That's what happens with the young guys. I don't want another one." Because he's there alone trying to raise a daughter. So we got a point. She was a nice person. I wish I could have. Again, I was in Naples. They were stressing me out. My mother stressed me out. My mother kicked me out when I told her that she existed. I said, "Look, I'm gonna go to Colombia, meet somebody, and if it works, I'll bring her back, and we'll take care of you. I'm finding it difficult to take care of you alone." Right. And my mother made her choices. Believe me, if she'd have just allowed that to happen, I'd probably still be with her. And she never would have. I mean, now she probably would have went into one of those places, but she would have had a better life with me. I took care of her hand and foot generally. I mean, I forced her to do stuff on her own because I didn't want her to baby out. When people get old, I mean, I've had it happen to me. When you get sick, you kind of baby out a little bit and you can't take care of yourself, or you don't. And you try to like use other people, right? The wounded mindset. So I tried to, it was difficult, but I tried to like force her to like, I guide her to do something, like to help my stepfather and stuff like that, instead of completely doing all of it. Because then cause she'll just turn into a dependent baby. Like she is now, I guess. It was inevitable, but I slowed it down, definitely. Right. It was just so strange. She would be like, if I didn't go to Walmart and call her from Walmart, she'd go, "You don't love me. You don't care about me." And then when I call her from Walmart, like after my gym, she'd say, "Mom, do you need anything?" "No, I don't need anything." But if I don't call her, she goes, "There's probably the deep state in her head." Because they were trying to set me up at Walmart. I knew that. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Right. So the scam is like a woman might be attracted and she tries to get your attention and they look on the camera. So you're already, okay, this woman's interested. They come in and go, "What about that guy? Do you know him?" "Oh, no, I don't know him." Because they don't want to lose their job, And all of a sudden you're this guy that just appeared out of the blue. 100%. And then they take care of them, Now, I'd have a normal life. I actually was looking at one of the photos of one of the houses that I would have had. It was this Victorian house in Huntsville, Alabama. I should have moved to it as quick as possible and just said the hell with it. Like I was trying to be thrifty. Like I was worrying about, but it cost me more money not to buy that house than it did to have bought it. That was a great deal. Oh my God, it was a great deal. It was one of the more modest homes in that neighborhood. And it was gorgeous. Newer, more modern. I still would have to update. I'd get rid of the rugs, put in hard floors. Right. That was about it. And I wanted to put some windows at the front. I redesigned the front with additional windows, and it looked much better, just in this one section. It was like above the tub, I think. The soak tub. Yeah, if I'd have just got my VA thing and did it, I'd have paid more money in like housing costs, not by much, maybe a few hundred more than I wanted. But, I lost so much money since then on just having to move around and other things. Right? It's hard to kick somebody out, not kick somebody, but force somebody to move when they have a house. Right? They have more credit. Right? In the system. they'll pay in hell. Right. Well, just try to get it to flow a little bit better. It's kind of this every day the worst of the worst thing, which is okay, but you might want to spread it out a little bit more, and then fill the other days with something else. And you do have other stuff, but right. Like put it on a website, and then provide that link, every other day or something, right? Or every 3 days, and then that'll show for the entire. Right. And again, at some point, I think you're going to need visas, so I'm not sure when that kicks in or how you're going to do that. Thank you, Larry. But you have to work on your employee assistance stuff. Again, it's the way you have to be careful because it can be used like the employee assisted suicide program. That's what I called it when I left the government. The employee assisted suicide program. They use that as an excuse to do stuff to people, and like the deep state sees that as a plus. Okay, they're in the assisted suicide program or employee assistance program. We can say that's why they suicided out, so they increase it. They use it as kind of this idea that they're more likely to suicide, so they increase that aspect. And they may actually go to their boss. Hey, boss, we got him into here. You give us some more money, and we'll be able to suicide him out probably, right? And it's a good cover. That's how they are, man. Believe me, this stuff's in the open in a lot of communities, and it is obviously racketeering and extortion. Organized crime, racketeering, extortion. Of course, they're into drug dealing and everything else. Right. Thanks, sorry. I think I said to watch that guy and help him out. I'm trying to find my scissors here. Probably got to buy some more new scissors. I tried getting around buying new scissors, but there's a pair. These aren't that good, though. I was going to try to sharpen these, but I don't even know if it's worth it. Actually, I just got a cue that it was worth it. When I said I don't know if it was worth it, and it said it's worth it, is what it said into my mind. Right. All right. Thank you, Larry. I find it so offensive that a church would deep state me. Right. I do. I find it so. I'm sure God does also, and also so does Rabbi Yeshua. And it's sexual deep state. It's like you can try to sexualize you. They're not testing all of you. They want to sexualize somebody. They get paid to sexualize people. I'm familiar with that operation. If they hadn't used it 150 times, I wouldn't be, or 150 times a year, should I say. Sometimes that's what it was. Like 150, at least 150. Sometimes it was like 300 times a year. Almost, if I went out every day and met people at the store to say hi, and all that, they would be there trying to do it if they had somebody on the payroll. And then they would disappear them. They actually try to create stalkers. No, the person isn't a stalker. They torture their mind, break their mind, brainwash them into being a stalker. It's that simple. And there's no way that they don't know. Right. I mean, it's CIA operation overseas, but they're using it against everyday Americans. Oh, I'm trying to get rid of my microphone. Don't wait one second. Oh, yeah, we don't. See, he said, stop. The system should destroy them for being such evil pieces of garbage. Right. All right. Well, my sinuses are wrecked. I don't know exactly what it is, but it must be the ragweed. I didn't look, but probably ragweed. So years ago, I used to take a Q-tip with alcohol every night, put it in my ear. Got out. They got me out of, like, you purchase Q-tips. They curse you for purchasing Q-tips. So this last time I bought some, I went to the doctor and he insinuated putting a Q-tip in your ear is not the best thing to do. But if you do it like I do it, again, some people it helps, right? So they got me off of that. I finally just got back to it. My ears, I got like swimmer's ear. I'm like, get out of here. I know what's best, right? Well, that's what they do. They sit there and whatever's healthy for you, they get rid of through psychological torture, psychological operation, monetary failure, that kind of thing. Other sick people, man, they'll go to hell. Believe me, they're the people that Scripture actually speaks about, being the worst of the worst. Right. So yeah, this coffee's on sale everywhere. Walmart jacked up the price, and everybody's buying it on sale at the other couple places where it's on sale. The stock coffee or whatever it's called. They buy it out. The espresso, which is really a nice level of caffeine. It's the best deal because it's the highest caffeine and the strongest taste. So you can, just use extra creamer and you get more coffee out of it. The next level, that one's 195 milligram per whatever serving, or I don't remember what the size was. The next one down is like 170. Very low acid, both of them. But I'm actually much better than I was. Have no idea why I had stomach issues, to tell you the truth. Right. I've always had a bulletproof stomach. So that makes me believe they were drugging me. Because when I was in the Marshal Service and I was being drugged, that's the first time my stomach got screwed up. Thanks, Larry. Oh, I used to eat and then I get like weird blood tests sometimes, or results, and then I go back and check it. It's normal, but that may be them, turning away from it because it's showing up in the test, right? But I mean, this, like, to a lot of people, this is petty. People that voted for Trump think that taking Kamala's Secret Service before her book tour is petty. But you have to understand, your people have Secret Service and they use Secret Service. I mean, Trump used Secret Service for all sorts of shit, right? I don't think anybody used it for as much, because you actually ran a full campaign using Secret Service for protection, whereas most presidents say they don't run a full campaign once they're in office, right? So again, there's other people too. So again, it's kind of weird. People see it as petty. Again, maybe not. The people trying to get money from Trump, they'll tell him whatever he wants to hear, right? Well, like your swing voters. Okay, there's an uprising. What's going on there? Nothing. I was telling you about that. Oh no, they didn't do that. The only thing is, you can still use it. I would move it. I would move it anyway, but I don't know. But it gives you a chance to rebuild it with like a couple other features. You don't have a segregation there. Right? You build a segregation unit. Well, he says he's an immigrant, not a criminal. Well, you really are a criminal for, you know, you have to obey all the laws, not the ones you pick and choose. The reality is that the police departments that are not helping you are in violation of the law. They make it sound like so natural. Oh, we don't enforce immigration laws. It's not an option. It's a law. You're there. You're there because why? Because you're an entity of the government and you have a certain service that you offer. It's called detainer service. And there's others that offer you detainer service. You don't have a right to say you don't enforce immigration law, which means you have violated the rights of those officers on those cases. But also, on top of that, I believe it's obstruction. Right. But there is no such thing as we don't enforce immigration law, especially when it comes to detainers. Right. Okay, there was no. Well, there's nothing wrong with shipping, breaking up a hunger strike by shipping them in different locations. That's what the BOP does, right? If it's a group thing, right? You definitely want like a rec yard where you can just put people out into it if you evacuate the facility for some reason, has a fence and all that. Maybe even split it up into, like 4 rec yards. Right? Maybe you want to build a segregation. Yeah, but you get the same system. You use the same system, make the cells smaller, and then put like a what do they call that? Like the thing I think you may have put between the crappers, the toilets, like a partition. Put partitions between them. That's it. Right. Well, what you want to do is you put them in there and you try to talk them down and see if you can get them to, tell them, if you chill out, we'll return you to the open community. Right. And again, if you stay here, we might ship you, to another facility, so they might not want that either. So you got to try to manage it like a correctional environment. They seem to have a lot of access to the outside. Like phone calls and stuff. I guess that's mandated. I guess I don't remember that happening in the BOP years ago, and so I don't know what the difference is. Yeah, it says this is weird. Positivity in old age might be a warning sign, not wisdom. What? Right. The older you get, the more you need to work at positivity. So, especially if you're not rich, right? So I don't understand that. It's actually a mind exercise for some people. Again, I guess for some people it might be not sensing something, right? Man tries to kidnap bikini barista through drive-up window. I read Drudge because you need. Actually, Trump should read Judge. He needs to, or actually his people. It might freak him out too much. I know he reads it sometimes, but right. He charged him. When is Ernst up for re-election? She says she's not going to 2026. Let's see, re-election. She's getting older now, I guess. Right? My recommendation is retire as early as you can. It's not worth it. If they didn't screw me over, I'd had a great life, man. And it wasn't my plan in life. I'm an excellent worker. I love working. Right. You think Peter Thiel's the Antichrist? Peter's a fake name anyway. I think Mr. Beast is the Antichrist. He'll just like continually like age and get more evil. Like remember, doesn't the young Mr. Beast remind you of the young Zuckerberg? He fooled all of us, didn't he? He's a maniacal tyrant. So Mr. Beast will age and shift like Zuckerberg probably, and then he'll be the Beast. My charity's the only charity that counts. I wouldn't put it past Hashem to actually have him named Mr. Beast. Actually, the Beast is metaphysical. The son of perdition is actually physical, theoretically. If we make it to that point, the earth might be destroyed before the son of perdition makes it here. Whoops, Satan! Damn you, Hashem! Undamned. Somebody damned Hashem. Yeah, voila. Okay, Larry. I think we're good here. Just another couple of days. I'm still like kind of in the hole. But I had two good days. What happened yesterday? I went somewhere yesterday. It worked out, and then today it definitely worked out. The VA appointment up today worked great. Oh, the DMV. I mean, it worked out better than it was appearing it was going to work. But I told the woman behind the counter, I'm like, I don't want a personalized plate. I want to stick with the personalized plate, because you know, they could give me a number that, you know, for all I know, because I don't know if they do that here, but I know there's places they would do it, and I was a whistleblower by, you know, by default. I needed to be. Again, you're not going to leave the government without your retirement unless, you know, there's no other way, you know, right? So, and I earned it, that's for sure. And they actually owed me millions. If I could have put a lawsuit together, I would have walked out with millions. Right. I don't know. It's like the Me Too thing. It's like fake. Like Zuckerberg was fake. The era of fakeness began. Me Too's not real. Like I was telling you, and again, they get mad at me because I know this, because Hashem tells me, you know. I said, you Me Too women, you got guys that are actually playing you, having sex with you. You have an argument, they break up with you, but they had sex with you. It's like a scam. It's just like that thing. Oh, we're gonna go study here at the academy. Well, you're a man, she's a woman, and you're both married, and like everybody knows that's how it works. And then the woman runs off, finds it. You know, it kind of like partner swapping. And now she dates another man, and a man dates another woman. So it was bullshit. The guys that were taking advantage of them were actually like hanging out with them all day. They just find some stupid case to attack people. Ah, fire that person. I'm not talking about serious rape or anything, right? It was just like some peripheral bullshit, you know. Me too. I ruined somebody's life. Meanwhile, the guy that's actually, you know, taking advantage of him, having sex with him 50 different ways with 70 different women, they don't give a shit about because he's some deep state slap, right? Agreed. Yeah, it kind of killed me too, I guess, when I said that. Well, if it's honest, it's honest. If it's dishonest, it's dishonest. It's just the way it is. It's actually worse that it's dishonest because it's being used to manipulate people's lives, you know, in a false fashion, you know, right? Like that's the whole basis of the deep state. There's the bad guy, so we're not the bad guy, right? There's the bad gal, so we're not the bad gal, right? Yeah, they definitely didn't want me testifying before the House in the Luna thing. They just about killed me. Now, who was the DAG back then? It's somebody who's around now. That's what I tripped out about that. I'm like, that's who that was? Because I was over in the U.S. Attorney's office, and they're like, the DAG's here. I'm like, because I had to do my trial and stuff like that. Right. Thanks, Larry. I forget who the DAG was back then, because it's like somebody. I forget who it was. Was it this guy? What's the guy? The guy that let me down, the Kansas Attorney General. He may have been. I can't remember who it was. Oh no, maybe it was the guy next door here. The guy in Missouri. Who was the? Who was it? 2003. Who was the Deputy Attorney General of the Justice Department in 2003? I think it was 2003. Maybe in 2004 by then. It wasn't Larry D. Thompson. It was Jones. Was it Comey? Oh, maybe it was Comey. But he didn't look that tall. Wait a minute. Kobe keeps stalking my life. Because he was in the independent counsel's office, right? It was Comey. So Comey's the one see, now this makes sense. So Comey was the DAG when Luna was, or right after Luna was killed, right? Thompson was the DAG before Comey. So like actually he was killed somewhere. I don't remember the date. It was either November or December, something like that, right? So Comey changed over. It changed over to Comey right before or right after, right? Thanks, sorry. I don't remember being that tall, but I didn't get close to him. I down the hallway from him because I had to go talk to. I think I may have been on my way to the number 2, the deputy U.S. Attorney's Office, Frank, whatever his name was. I think his name was Frank. What was that last name? Oh, Brian was no, it wasn't Brian. It was one of the. It was Welch or Walsh or something like that. And then the DAG was like, the DAG's here. I'm like, yeah. Waylaid. But I think they were trying to get me to see. I think something was trying to get me to go to the Justice Department about the whole thing. But I don't know who, what. It could have been CIA. They can't tell me, but they can will it, right? Or not will it, I guess. I'm against it. Or desire it. I need to speak to your DAG. I have some secret information about the death of Jonathan Luna. That's why I was surprised it was Comey. It wasn't the black guy. I knew that. No, I relive that day because I'm thinking, should I have brought it to somebody's attention? Because you can't tell, right? Whether you should or shouldn't. Right. Obviously, once I was out and they drugged me, I knew I should have. And I read about the hearing. I'm like, I should have brought it to someone's attention because I didn't know they were actually looking into it. They may have heard me and looked into it, thinking, "Well, where's that guy? Where's that guy we hear?" I was part of what was happening. The Senate and the House. I was an inside guy. I didn't know anything about anything. The Senate and the House were being attacked by deep staters and being extorted. And I'm like a law enforcement help, I guess, or something. And on the inside, and military help on the inside. That's how Reagan knew me. And thanks, Larry. Or doesn't know me, but he knew me inside. He knew me inside. Right. He says, I know you now. He just said, I know you now. So they may have heard me screaming about it. Right. But what happened was they were being harassed and they were trying to figure out what to do. So they called me up, they had me in their mind, however it works for them. Again, I'm not sure, whether they prayed to God or they, actually had me or just received inferences or heard voices and we had conversations. I've had conversations with Lady Diana. I've had conversations like I'm not having it now. I was having it back then, but as a repressed memory, it came out. Right. Well, actually, she was around my life at a certain point as like an afterlife too. That one also. No, I'm supposed to be in Hollywood. Or something like that. Like there was always big life that I was supposed to have. That way I could do my work. Just getting into a big life, right? I'm a spirit in Hollywood mind, right? They help when they can hear me. Again, I don't even hear me sometimes. I help them with things, right? Help them deal with their issues. No, I'm supposed to be somewhere. No doubt. You all screwed up the world. Yeah, I took that. I found it was Comey. Like I already told me. So he may have been trying to hush up the Luna thing, you know? Right. Should have hushed up himself. He'd still be there. Right. Or would have stayed. And that's why Bondi has to be careful about speaking out. Right. Well, here's an example. You attack Clinton, then they attack someone else, then they attack. Like everybody's going back and forth. It's better in the old days when nobody would get in trouble for any of it. Right. And that was my point. Right. Well, it's a hard job to be in government. So if you do that, like all Trump had to do, like if I was there, I would have said, Trump, well, actually, I was mad at him then. I wouldn't have said it. But, but let's say he was leaving the government. I'd tell him, don't take anything, burn everything. Don't take anything, burn everything. If you have to give it to the archive, you give it to the archive. Right. Right. Not worth it. I burned everything. Bye. Big fire. I shredded first. Then whatever I had left, I burned. I had a big burn barrel at Jim Spicer's house, and I burned all remaining documents. Well, I mean, you have to destroy it. There's computer printouts and all sorts of shit. But, no, I wasn't required to send anything to the archives. Again, see, but I'm in with Reagan and all those people. Back then, I had that connect. I mean, he passed on probably either before, I think maybe before I burned it, or just as I was burning it, probably. Yeah, see, I have that contact. Burn everything. It might be me. Maybe I told them to burn everything. Right. I told Trump no. Let everybody get rid of shit. Don't take anything with you. Not worth it. Yeah, so my evidence was like, I burned my evidence. I didn't have anything left. I think that's what they're trying to get me to do now, but I'm going to keep the algorithm evidence. I don't have all of it. It gets too big. Well, the problem is if you don't have anybody on your side, you'll say, oh, no, Elon's not doing that. It's imagination. Again, you don't know if it's Elon or someone else. Because he's, there's so many layers of people below him. Right. That's what they want to do. They want to want everybody to believe it's Elon. Well, because you're supposed to hate Elon, aren't you? Hey, Elon, big balls, horrible people. Yeah, they're going to win with Dear Leader if you're not careful. Right. I can't believe I'm eating so many pretzels. I haven't had soft pretzels in a while. I really do like the new recipe. Apparently, that soft pretzel company, the major one that people buy from, the Super Pretzel, it says new recipe, same twist. It's much better. I like it better. The old ones had an aftertaste to it, I thought. Maybe from the, I guess it has baking soda or baking powder in it. But I think they taste better. Stay peaceful, praise God, and all what you do. I think I covered everything I needed to cover.